Greetings, friends, and welcome to Captain Samuel's Stultifying SF. Today we're looking at the 6th annual edition of the year's Best SF, edited by Judith Merrill. The year's Best SF, indeed. It's an anthology of mostly science fiction stories, but also includes non-fiction articles, jokes, poems, cartoons, and even a few songs. I picked up this collection because it's full of authors I've never heard of and wanted to try something new. As we'll see, there's a reason that I've never heard of the majority of these authors. Now, the editor was Judith Merrill. She was born in 1923 and was a pioneer for women to write and edit SF. She was even married to Frederick Pohl for a little while. Later in life, she moved to Canada to protest the Vietnam War and did a lot of work for the good of the Toronto public library system. So Judith Merrill was a pioneer and a public servant, so I don't want to throw too much shade on her. That being said, her concept of what is the best SF, or even acceptable SF, is vastly different from mine. Her introduction to the book and to each story are written in an excessively intellectual, formal, verbose writing style that includes a lot of words but actually doesn't say much. Her writing style feels stale and rigid. She picked a lot of authors who write in a similar style to her. Almost all these stories were mind-numbingly dull, with all tell and no show. The few stories that were good somehow managed to be ruined by over-the-top prejudice. I know that comes with reading over the books, but it seemed worse here because when you finally get a story that was actually decently written, it would just be riddled with sexism and racism, and you'd be like, oh man, can't any of these stories just be enjoyable? Now, actually there were I think 2 or 3, maybe 4 stories that were really good, and will I hold on to the collection? I don't know. There were 2 at least that I'd like to be able to reread and access later on if I wanted to. But overall, this collection was a real slog. I give it 1 star overall. Finishing it felt like a brutal, heroic task rather than a pleasurable read. So if that's all you want to know about the 6th annual edition, Year's Best F, edited by Judith Merrill, I don't blame you, but if you'd like to hear around for my analysis of all the 35 little interesting things in this book, that's what we're going to do next. Okay, time to go through all 35 stories, cartoons, songs, what have you, in the 6th annual Best SF. And we've got special guest Carmen, our emotional support dog, who's going to help us through this. Let's get going. Double Double Toil and Trouble by Holly Canteen. A nameless guy uses magic to duplicate himself to form a magic band and then a communist army. This story was all tell with no show and an intellectually distant writing style. 0 stars. The Never-Ending Penny by Bernard Wolfe. A Mexican farm worker gets an infinitely duplicating penny. Stilted prose with plot holes. 1 star. The Fellow Who Married the Maxwell Girl by Ward Moore. An alien with miraculous healing powers marries a farm girl but is mistaken by her family for a disabled person. Again, too much telling and not much showing. Stiff prose, but it had some touching moments. 3 stars. Something Invented Me by R.C. Fellon. A Texas millionaire pays a scientist to create an AI to ghostwrite books for him. This also had a dry writing style, but a prescient premise with a twist ending. 3 stars. A Sigh for Cybernetics by Felicia Lamport. A poem about computer robots chopping up penises. 0 stars. And also 5 stars. Obvious by Michael Flokes. This was a cartoon about AI I'll put up on screen. Kinda witty, I guess. 2 stars. I Remember Babylon by Arthur C. Clarke. Clarke tells the true story of meeting a guy at a party who plans to use a satellite to broadcast Russian propaganda paired with shock value content such as pornography. And I think that sounds good to me. The Russian bots I argued with in the 2024 election could only shitpost insulting memes. 3 stars. Oh. Here's one of the most brutal stories in the whole book. Carmen, support us, buddy. The Lagging Profession by Leonard Lockhart. A patent lawyer describes the jargon and legal proceedings necessary to patent the TV satellite from the previous story. It was literally all dialogue of people discussing patent law. Insufferably boring, and I was wondering if it was a joke, honestly. 0 stars, Carmen. That story gets 0 stars. The Distortion by Shel Silverstein. It's a cartoon of a TV eating a guy. I don't watch traditional TV, so I kind of liked it, but meh. 2 stars. So, most of the people in this book, as I mentioned in the intro, are folks I've never heard of before. I've never heard of them. I've never heard any other booktubers mention them. John Brunner is someone I've actually read before. I read his Travelers in Black, and it was pretty good. And I was hoping John Brunner could turn it around here. A scientist accidentally turns the moon into cheese. Har har. 0 stars. Then we've got J.G. by Roger Price. A new type of unusually intelligent gorilla is kidnapped from the jungle and taken to the city. It's supposed to be a comedy, but the gorilla is repeatedly abused. The comedy is capitalizing random words, and it also includes bestiality and sexual assault jokes. Negative stars. Then we've got Chief by Henry Slazar. White survivors of a nuclear apocalypse ask for refuge among black cannibals in Africa. The cannibals eat the white men and become irradiated, which they think means having the white man's power. Now, the story was brief and clever, but, damn, so racist. If they'd used, aliens or something, it might have been, kind of clever with a zinger ending. But the fact that they use these racist stereotypes, negative stars. Then we've got Psalm by Lester Del Rey, and this was a rewording of a biblical psalm to describe an irradiated world. It had some unexplained acronyms in it that you might have known what they meant in 1961, but in 2025 I had no idea what some of these acronyms meant. And that hurt the poem, but otherwise I thought it was a pretty disturbing and provocative view on nuclear war. 3 stars. We've got The Large Ant by Howard Fast. Ant-like aliens with no concept of murder visit the Earth and are impulsively murdered by humans. What will be the ramifications of this? This was mostly, again, dry pontification with very little action, but it was okay. 3 stars. Proposed by Any Other Name by Christopher Anvil. A United Nations scientist invents a device that prevents people from discussing war or politics until they develop a unified world language. This was dryly written, but I thought it was an interesting concept. 3 stars. Enchantment by Elizabeth Emmett. A woman visits a castle library and sees a ghost. Uninteresting and uneventful. 1 star. Again, Isaac Asimov is up next, and I was like, I loved his Foundation books as a teenager. Come on, Isaac Asimov, pull us out of this rut. His spoof article was called Thiotimoline and the Space Age, and he invents a chemical which dissolves before it touches water and makes a fake speech on how it can help in the space race. And this was so boring. It was just a fake scientific article about this made-up chemical. Maybe the patent lawyer that wrote the patent lawyer story would have found this comedy gold, but oh man, dude. 1 star. So boring. So boring. Now, who actually did pull us out of the rut a little bit here was an author I've never heard of before, Marshall King. And I googled Marshall King. He hasn't written anything since then. The only thing that comes up when you Google Marshall King is Beach Scene. And I'm also assuming it's a man. I don't know. I know a lot of times female writers used male pseudonyms. But Marshall King wrote Beach Scene, and this story was actually really good. A fun-loving alien with time-stop powers encounters greedy colonialist humans on their planet for the first time. And this actually had showing, not telling. It actually expounded the story through the events, not just lore dumps and describing what was happening with no action. It was really well written, moving, and thought-provoking. So Beach Scene by Marshall King gets 5 stars. Definitely the best story in the entire collection. Creature of the Snows by William Sambrot. A guy hikes in the Himalayas and finds snow people. Nothing really that interesting happens. 2 stars. Abominable by Frederick Brown. A male explorer who's really into women, he's described as a connoisseur of women, whatever that means, goes looking for a lost female movie star and ends up the sexual mate of an abominable snow woman. So, depending on what you're into, you can choose to give it 0 stars or 5 stars. I'm not telling you what I give it. The Man on Top by R. Bretnor. A rich man insults a holy man before heading out to climb Mount Everest. This story was well written with a hilarious twist ending, and that is our second 5-star story. David's Daddy by Rosal George Brown. Now, she is an obscure author, but I've actually heard of her before, and I picked up one of her books for the intellectual content, of course. This is The Waters of Centaurus. I haven't read it yet, but I will at some point. I guess it's about a space police woman who lives on a planet totally covered by water. Yeah, give it a read sometime. Let's see how she did. A teacher and an elementary school student with psychic powers hunt a bomb hidden in the school. This was decently written, but the concept of the story was in really poor taste, I felt. 2 stars. The Thinkers by Walt Kelly. This was another comic. I'll put it up on screen. Kind of interesting and funny. 4 stars. Something Bright by Zena Henderson. During the Great Depression, an elderly lady pays for a girl to sleep in her house at night. The old lady goes bonkers looking for something every evening. This story definitely gave off creeper vibes, but overall it was well written and an engaging mystery. 4 stars. In the House Another by Joseph Whitehill. An alien slinks around an everyday house. This was, again, with stilted, excessively intellectual prose, uninteresting and confusing. 1 star. A Serious Search for Worlds by Ray Bradbury. I was hoping Ray Bradbury would give us some good fiction. This is a non-fiction piece. It was reasonably interesting, though. It's about the origins of life on Earth and what extraterrestrial life could be like on other planets. Again, interesting, but I was hoping for some fiction from him. 3 stars. Ed Lear Wasn't So Crazy by Hilbert Schenck Jr. A poem about an owl and a cat getting married on Mars. I don't get it. I read it a couple times. I don't get it. 2 stars. Instructor by Thelwell. This is another comic. I thought it was cute. The monkeys teaching the astronaut. Haha. 3 stars. The Brotherhood of Keepers by Dean McLaughlin. This was the longest story in the collection. It just went on and on and on and on and on. Political intrigue about the rights and sentience of aliens called floppers. Dull metaphysical, ethical, and political debating. I got burned out and DNF'd it. 1 star. You can only take so much, right, Carmen? Carmen's out of here. She's like, I'm done. I'm done with the 6th annual edition year's best FF. Hemingway in Space by Kingsley Amis. Oh man, F this story, bro. Ugh. Male astronauts are hunting a space creature, and they mansplain to the only woman on board that she can't help in the hunt because she's a woman and should be making them lunch. One of the male astronauts gets killed during the hunt, and then they all blame her for not helping in the hunt. I get that older stories have sexism in it, but damn, son. That's too far. Also, this story was supposed to be funny. According to the introduction, I guess it's supposed to be a humor piece. No. Fail. -, stars. Mine Own Ways by Richard McKenna. Some guys have their wives stolen by tribal warriors, but Space Explorer rules say they aren't supposed to interfere. Flat characters, boring damsel in distress trope, DNF'd it, burnout stars. And then we've got Brian Aldiss, Old Hundredth. This story was pretty good. It was about a planet where all of the humans have uploaded their consciousness into pure energy, and the only thing left are anthropomorphic animals. So the main character is actually an anthropomorphic giant ground sloth. Carmen's over there yawning. Yeah, that's how I felt about this collection too. But the Brian Aldiss story was well written, with an interesting ending and cool world building. 4 stars. And then at the end, we've actually got a couple songs, and that was by Theodore Cogswell and Gordon R. Dixon. Now, Theodore Cogswell actually wrote, probably before this book, my least favorite book of all time. Carmen. There you go. Oh, those dogs. Doggy dog doggos. Theodore Cogswell wrote Spock Messiah, one of the worst books I've ever read, and he wrote a song called Radiation Blues. It's set to the music of John Henry. It's incredibly corny. What I'll do is in the description, I will post a link to 3 good songs, SF songs, that I like, that I hope you'll like. Into the Void by Black Sabbath, The Siege and Investiture of Baron von Frankenstein's Castle at Wisseria by Blue Oyster Cult, and Speed of Light by Julia Eckler. Those are 3 good songs that are worth your time. And then it kind of wraps up with another article, How to Think About a Science Fiction Story by J. Harry Stein. I skipped that one. I was just too burned out at that point. And then Judith Merrill sums up the entire collection. Again, in extremely stilted, dry, intellectual prose. One of those writers that just has a lot of words but never really says anything. And then at the end, it's got honorable mentions. And as I was looking through this, I was thinking, what honorable mentions would I have put in this book? Let's see here. So there was more John Brunner. He had a story called Bad Man and Imprint of Chaos. I don't know what those were, but I would have put them in there over, The Moon is Cheese or whatever. Clifford Simak, Cordwainer Smith. So there were more big names that came out. I think maybe what she was trying to do was give these new authors a chance to shine, but I just think that her taste in SF is not my taste. I mean, I'm not here for prejudice jokes and long-winded stories about patent law. But anyway, there you go. If you sat through the whole thing, congratulations. Thanks for watching. Hope you're doing well. Bye.